Today, I'm going to talk about 4 costly mistakes that General Lee made at the Battle of Gettysburg that ended up losing the battle for the Confederacy and eventually the entire war. Up until the Battle of Gettysburg, the Confederates had beaten the Union Army a number of times, almost every time, rather easily. President Lincoln had replaced 4 commanding generals for the Union because the Union generals could not get the Army moving. They couldn't figure out how to get 90-some thousand men moving into a location. And when they did get into a battle, they never took the high ground. They were always counting on their numbers, and the Confederates would just slay them. The 4 mistakes that Lee made that we're going to go over is the first: he went into battle at Gettysburg with no cavalry. Secondly, he failed to order a general to take an important hill that the Union's soldiers had just got onto and hadn't fortified yet. Third, he made a costly frontal assault at Little Round Top, which was a hill in Gettysburg. And last, he ordered Pickett's charge. To start off, we're going to see how General Lee became involved at the Battle of Gettysburg. General Lee had a standing order going into Gettysburg that the Confederate forces were not to get any major engagements. General Hill, one of Lee's generals, had ordered his troops to go into Gettysburg to find some shoes for the soldiers because a lot of them were barefoot. When one of General Hill's generals went into Gettysburg, he confronted some cavalry soldiers from the Union. General Buford. Buford saw that the Confederates were coming to Gettysburg and decided that he already had the high ground and was going to hold it because he knew that the Union troops weren't, the infantry troops weren't far behind. General Buford dismounted off his cavalry and dug into a hillside in Gettysburg and waited for the Confederate soldiers to come. General Heath thought that the Union soldiers were just were cavalry and it was no big deal because it's easier for Union soldiers or Confederate foot soldiers to beat horse soldiers, so he decided to attack them. Well, the attack didn't go well, and it turned into be a major engagement. Shortly after, the Union troops arrived, and that's how the Battle of Gettysburg got started. It was actually an accident that they ran into each other. The important thing about the cavalry screen is it's the eyes and ears of the Confederate soldiers. Lee had no idea how many soldiers were coming in from the Union. Had the horses been out, he would have known that 95,000 troops were coming up behind the horse soldiers that were already in Gettysburg. Now that General Lee was engaged in Gettysburg, we're going to see how General Ewell failed to take a key position in Gettysburg. When the attack first started, the Confederates were able to push the Unions through Gettysburg, through the town, and to the other side of the town to a hill across from a cemetery. It's known as Cemetery Hill that overlooks the entire area. Instead, General Lee told General Ewell that to go ahead and take that hill if he could. He did not give an order to take the hill. He said, only if you can. The problem with that was General Lee was used to giving General Stonewall Jackson orders, and they were done. General Stonewall Jackson would have taken that hill from the Union before they got dug in. However, General Jackson had been killed 4 months before at the Battle of Fredericksburg. He was shot by his own men accidentally. So when he gave General Ewell this, General Ewell wasn't like Stonewall Jackson, and he didn't take the hill for a number of reasons that he gave. But bottom line was that he didn't take the hill, which allowed the Union Army to dig in. That was General Ewell. Union were dug in on that hill, overlooking the whole town with their cannons. Secondly, the next mistake that General Lee made was attacking Little Round Top. This is an actual picture of the hill, pretty much as it was then. The Union soldiers were encamped in these rocks on top of this hill. The Confederate forces attacked up this hill instead of going around the backside and coming in. General Hood was in charge of that attack under General Lee's order, And he asked a number of times to be able to attack from the rear through the trees, and General Lee said, no, you're going to go up that hill. Well, that hill is 465 feet tall with all the boulders, and they were just shot up as they were coming up through there. General Hood attacked. When he attacked there, he ran into Colonel Longstreet, who had his main regiment up there. And the battle was quite fierce, and as the Union forces were running out of ammunition, Colonel Chamberlain ordered a bayonet attack and attacked on the hill with just bayonets that were out of ammo, and ended up capturing and killing a lot of the soldiers from the Confederacy. That's General Hood and General Chamberlain. Lastly, the last mistake, and the biggest mistake, is General Lee decided that since the flanks had been attacked, this Union center must be weak. Pickett's charge was ordered across a 3/4 mile field, across open ground against the Confederate or the Union soldiers that were entrenched on high ground. Pickett was ordered, along with 2 other generals, to cross that field and take the high ground, using a little over 12,000 men. Confederates opened with cannon fire, and the troops would, however, overshot quite a few times before the charge. The charge made it to the wall where the Union soldiers were, however, were killed or beaten back and captured. The results of Pickett's charge: the Confederate Army lost 6,200 men in less than an hour, 50% casualty rate. General Lee fled the battle the next day across the Potomac, never again to invade the North. General's mistakes had 4 mistakes at Gettysburg. He entered the engagement with no cavalry, which means he had no eyes and ears on the Union forces. General Buell was not ordered to take Cemetery Hill, and thus he didn't do it, giving the Union the high ground. General Lee ordered a frontal assault of Little Round Top instead of coming around the back, where she would have been under cover of trees, and ordered Pickett's charge was probably the biggest thing again, the biggest mistake at Gettysburg. This is what might have been had General Lee not making those mistakes at Gettysburg. At that point, they probably would have sued for peace, because they would have been in Washington, D.C., forcing the North to sue for peace and making it at least 2 separate countries. Yeah.